Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our pandemic survival group coaching session. It's April 29th. We've almost made it through another month. How about that?
Could have been the longest month of my life.
Jeez.
It has been an interesting month.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it definitely feels like longer than a month. So for those of you that have been tracking my personal travels, I'm now back in San Diego after spending 2 weeks with my 80-plus-year-old parents, helping them figure out how to shelter in place in Palm Desert. So I've left Paul in Palm Desert. He's still there. So
it's a bit warm here. It's 100 degrees, but that's okay. It's nice.
Holy smokes.
How's your weather in weather in Boulder, David?
Oh, low 70s, sunshine. It's the way it's supposed to be. It's like San Diego, Ed.
There we go. That's all good. Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, I think let's dispense with the introductions. You guys probably should all know who we are by now. So, you know, when Paul and David and I were talking yesterday, we decided we're going to kind of take this group coaching session into a different direction now. I think there's some light at the end of the tunnel, which I'm going to share with you on the next slide. But, you know, on our weekly webinars on Fridays, we're still going to be providing lots of information and all of the latest and up-to-date information as far as loan aids and shutdowns and strategies for getting through this crisis. But we really want to spend more time on these group coaching calls as an exchange of information, all right? We want you guys to be participating in this as well as us, because we feel that your ideas and perspectives are just as important as ours. So we're going to change the format a little bit here going forward. We're going to present a series of group discussion questions. We're going to open it up to the group, and then we're going to ask for your participation. Actually, we're not even going to just ask for it. We've decided that we have the right to actually cold call on people. So like right now, I see that Matt Ducharme is not currently looking at his screen. So, you know, if I was a spiteful teacher, I guess I'd try to call on Matt, because I can see that Matt.
Hey, Matt. Right. He's already looking at his screen. There we go.
Right. Now I can see that Matt is back. So, okay, Matt, we're not gonna call on you now, but we are checking on people. So, all right. So that's our new program here. All right. So we're just gonna warn you that we may call on you at any moment. So,
and just for feedback, I mean, this is becoming almost more of a roundtable, and sharing some experiences, what's working, some things that haven't worked, and look, you know, we can all share some experience.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let me share with you. I think there's some light at the end of the tunnel, folks. So this is the map, of course, we've been showing every week. And you can now see that as of today, there are less red states than there were even last week. So this is the first change in this map in over 3 weeks. And so the good news is that, I got to get my geography right. Is that New Hampshire? What is that next to New York? Someone help me. Is that New Hampshire or Vermont?
I think that's Maine.
I'm not sure which.
Is that Maine?
No,
that's not Maine.
Maine's at the very end. Yeah,
that's right.
But anyway, one of the New England states, as well as the opposite corner of our country, Washington, have now dropped their statewide order with construction. David and I actually heard from one of our clients yesterday that they are now back to work up in Whidbey Island, which is terrific. So I really think that we're going to start seeing more of those red states drop off the map. We're going to hopefully see the greens turn into grays, and hopefully we are past the worst of this, and we're all going to be able to get back to work here sometime in the month of May. I was reading a couple of articles this morning in the New York Times and the LA Times, and they seem to confirm that as well. So that's our good news. So, all right, well, let's just jump right into our group discussion. Here's the first thing that we want to hear from you is, what sales have you closed since the pandemic, and how did you close?
I think we should call on Marco, since we know he's a given, right?
Yeah? Yeah, all right. Let's see if Marcos will talk to us here. All right, let's unmute Marcos. Hey, Marcos, are you there?
Hey, gentlemen, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So yeah,
Go for it.
Yeah, we closed a $500,000 home remodel. So that's currently in design right now. full steam ahead. We didn't actually have to go to her home to measure her house, which was good. She already had as-built created. So we just did some exterior measurements. So that's been good. We also had one client put us on hold. So it was a good project, and they are nervous because of the income. So that's kind of this stuff. And yeah,
Right.
so it's sort of up and down, and it's riding the wave. So I would say we're blessed overall, but definitely I've had some sleepless nights.
Yeah.
So
everything was done.
I was gonna ask a question. You know, we've including myself, I've had a little bit of panic got over it because I started actually looking at the numbers and how business was going. So if you're willing to, you don't have to tell the exact numbers, Marcos, but if you look since, you know, the pandemic has happened, has your income really dropped off much or not?
No, we're still okay as far as cash goes. So we're coming to the point where the question is, you know, how much longer do we keep our staff, you know, our full-time staff, is the question. So, you know, the workload
hasn't dropped off radically, right?
Not drastically, no. Like we had one client that cut back their budget 20% on their project. It was going to be like a $900,000 project, and it dropped down to about 700 or 650,000.
Okay.
So we're moving forward, but yeah. Yeah.
So far, your worrying has been sort of not hasn't been appropriate, but you didn't have to worry, but you have. So I think a lot of this, when we come through this, we'll find out we spent a lot of time worrying we didn't need to. So there's no evidence. The world hasn't come to an end, and your actual reality hasn't changed that much, right? So I think a lot of people in some situation.
True. Yeah. Besides physical distancing. Yeah.
Right. The money hasn't slowed down, but you can't kiss your friends or whatever. Right? So that's fine. All right.
Can I ask a quick question, Marcos?
Sure.
So you did all of this virtually then? Once you had the as-builts, then how did you proceed through any design and selection questions? How did you do that?
Right. So actually, this was we closed this project during the pandemic, but we had our first initial consultation before the pandemic. So we actually had a one physical meeting before.
Okay.
And then, we did everything. We've done the pre-design meeting remotely. We're scheduled to do the first design meeting remotely.
Great. And
so
the selections,
normal, right?
You just guided people through a selection process, or did you have many of those things identified?
So our selection process, the client actually had a lot of image references of what she'd like us to follow. So that's what and then we also provide a 6 questionnaire to our clients. So she filled it out, and we had pretty like an hour meeting going over exactly what she's looking for.
Right. So that's good. So it doesn't slow you down. Okay, Ed, find somebody else who closed something. I want to hear somebody else's story.
All right, let's see if anyone, you guys know how to raise
their hand.
Before we cold call. Anyone out there want to offer a sales that you've closed here in the last 6 weeks? Tina, Renee, Ned, Miriam. Let's see.
Oh, there's one, Miriam.
Oh, Miriam. All right, let's hear from Miriam. All right, Miriam, you are on the air.
Well, we closed 2 sales during this pandemic, but of course we met with these people prior to us being shut down. One sale was closed via Zoom, which we use a lot because here in Naples we have a transient community. It's all seasonal, so we've totally lost our season, and our season is October through April, and they all disappear and go back home.
Yeah.
So
and you're in Naples, Florida, right?
Yes, Naples, Florida. So when you close things down mid-March, we lost pretty much 30 to 40% of our business. Boom, because we had people that decided to go on hold or whatever. But the 2 sales we did close, one was closed by Zoom, and then they emailed the contracts back to us. The other one was closed via our showroom, which we have set up with the antiseptic hand sanitizers and Clorox wipes and masks and all that stuff. And we set 6 feet apart and closed the sale with the paper and went on our way. And these sales were, well, they weren't $700,000 sales, but they were $100,000 and $200,000 sales. So
Yeah,
we were
yeah.
very thankful for those 2 sales. So now we're waiting now for Collier County in Naples to open up. And once the commissioners do that, then we have to wait for the high-rise condo associations to say, yes, we can go into their condos. So we have the county as well as the associations that have their say before we can do anything. So we're anticipating we're not going to be able to start anything until maybe mid-June, 1st of July from the sales that we do have.
Are they not allowing you to pull permits, or they're just not allowing access?
They don't allow access. We can pull permits. The permits have been done by scanning. We can't go into the permit office. So we have to scan everything in or drop it off at a drop box if you don't have that access to scan. Wow. It takes days longer to get a permit.
Yeah.
And so it's been a very tedious situation here.
But you're still functioning, right?
We're still functioning. We have most of our carpenters. We do a lot of our work by subcontract, but we do have 3 in-house carpenters that have been working. We had a couple of jobs that were already pre-sold prior to the close down, and they allowed us to continue to work, so they had their work. But our design salespeople have been pretty much laid off since the beginning of April. And we're hoping to bring them back on in May if we get our PPP loan.
Good.
Well, a similar question that Marcos responded to. Has your income dropped dramatically, Miriam?
Yes.
Okay.
By about 40%.
Wow.
Is that net income to you over 1 month?
Our market ends in the end of April, and we lost our market. We were just going great guns. We had anticipated at least a $3 million year, and now we're looking at maybe 1.5, 1.6 million for the year. So
now, is there anything knowing Naples, you know, they have the largest Bentley dealer actually in the country. Tell you what Naples is like, right? So I've had some clients in Naples. So is there any way that through this you can either get a hold of condo associations? I mean, is there a marketing opportunity here other than just going, oh my God, it's all dead and we're done? Can you either get a hold of designers, or is there something you can do because you've been able to do this remotely to not necessarily lose the market? Because obviously people aren't there, might be able to build because they're not in their condos, right? They all went home. So is there any opportunities there?
There's a lot of our people have gone back north, but we only have a window in these high-rise condos because of the elite group of people that are here in Naples. They will only allow us to do remodeling while they're not here. So we have a window until October 1st, October 15th to complete a project before they all come back down again. So we have a very small window, and yes, we can do some networking, which we fully plan on doing when designers get back on staff.
Because I have a client down there that did really well, and basically he did most of his business through knowing the right home building managers, like those kind of people. So maybe it would be a time once you can actually leave and not get in trouble, is to call on those building managers and see if you can, get some stuff that people want to get done quickly before they come back. So that might be an idea.
Yeah, we do. We do contact the building managers. We even take them little goodie baskets and all that kind of stuff to keep in touch with them. So we do network with the building managers a lot.
Okay. Well, I might want to step that up for the next, as soon as you can after this time. Cool. All right. Anybody else? You're in charge.
Ned's been making some comments. Do you want to?
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Let's see. So where is Ned? There you are, Ned. All right, Ned, you're on the air.
Oh, yes. So I was just saying that, so we have a couple of projects under construction, and we're getting some requests of people that want to see the properties, and obviously we're telling them, no, well, it's under construction. And so they're asking, hey, can my agent come by and do a Zoom and look at it? So I wanted to find out what you guys think is a good idea to show a property that's, not 100% finished, maybe more like 80% done. And or do you think the first impression is very important? So maybe better just to tell them wait until it's done before letting them in.
How long do you have before it's done?
We think we'll be done in the next 30 to 45 days.
Okay. And are there people interested in these projects?
Yeah.
I'm interested. Okay. So I would use the interest rate close, right? I mean, personally, I'm thinking of buying a house right now, which I don't because the market, because I'm selling a house in Hawaii, but I'm looking at 2.75 interest and going, my God, that's free money, right? So that might be a close because we don't know how long it's going to last, right?
Right. That's true.
So I would go to them and say, look, interest rates haven't been lower in 50 years. And so if you're ever going to buy anything, and especially any financing and all, now's the time to do it. So I would use the sense of urgency over interest rates and saying, now is the time because they may go away at any time because it was all done because of this pandemic, and who knows when they're going to go back up. And they could go back to, 3.5% or something, which makes a huge difference, right? So I would show them the property and say, take advantage of low interest and start now.
Okay, so you don't see a problem in terms of showing a property that's under construction?
No, because you've got pictures. Yeah, because you got pictures of stuff that's done, right? Not that particular property, but they can see what it's going to look like, right?
That's true. Similar properties, not exactly
similar, but it's similar enough. I mean,
is this the segue to Matterport?
Well, no, but it's not quite done yet. So my thought is, I would just show them properties that are similar and say, this is close to your living room, this is close to your bathroom, this is the kind of tile work you're going to have, but say we don't want to wait till interest rates go back up, so let's close this deal now. And I would do it all on Zoom. That'd be fine.
Okay.
Okay. So
we had a request from Elena saying when a guest speaker comes on, can they say what county or where in the country they're located? Because we got people from all over.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Right.
So we can tell you Marcos Santa Ana is in Los Angeles, California. Ned, you are in the DC area, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then we had Miriam in Naples, Florida. So those are our three kind of corners. We've got the whole country covered there. So
right.
So all right. Thank you for that, Elena. Let's see.
Want to go to our next question, Ed?
Yeah, let's move on to our next one. All right, so let's move from sales to production. So everyone is in varying states of what they are allowed to do and what they can't do. We talked to some clients up in the Bay Area where technically they're supposed to be shut down. They're not supposed to be doing any work. They actually, with the consent of the homeowner, are working on one house, but they're making it look like it's abandoned. In other words, they're not parking in front of the house. They're kind of coming and going through the back of the house. The neighbors are aware that they're working in the house and they've gotten their tacit approval. So whether it's completely legal or you guys just stretching it, we're curious to hear what actions you've taken that have allowed you to continue building during these restrictions.
Yeah, somebody can raise their hand. How have you continued working within, or stretching some of the requirements?
Right. I can share with you another corner of the country here in San Diego, front page article yesterday in San Diego that the San Diego Building Department is actually encouraging construction to continue. And they have a series of regulations that they have now, such things as annual hand washing, no sharing of tools, crews have to stay 6 feet apart. One that I thought was interesting is they're actually not allowing them to carpool to the jobs anymore, which is kind of obviously counterintuitive to everything we've been trying to do here in Southern California. But I guess under this, they're doing that. What they're doing as a building department is they're actually now going fully digital. So you can now process all of your building permits online. You no longer need to go into the building department to submit a series of plans, and all of the permitting process now can all be done online. So that's really reducing the amount of interactions of people going into the building department and sitting there for hours. So,
okay. Nobody's volunteering here.
No one is volunteering. All right.
We have a question from Elena. Is that we answered that one yet?
Well, that was Elena asking.
Okay, right.
Where we have. So you know what I'm going to do? Let me move on. I'm going to do a little bit of show and tell here. I'm going to move forward here to share with you our kind of poster child client here. This is again Lewis Builders that we've talked about before, and they just sent out a new email yesterday to their clients showing how they're incorporating 3 tools to do virtual design technology. The first one is the one that we keep talking about, which is the Matterport. And that's where they start. And what they do is with the Matterport, they're able, as we've shown before, them to be able to walk through the space. But now they're actually using that to take measurements. And then from there, they generate within Chief Architect 3D models of the plans. So they can share those with the clients. And then they're using a technology called Twin Motion that actually animates those 3D models. So it takes those 3D models that are created in Chief Architect, it adds the sun, the clouds going across the sky, the wind blowing through the trees. The other cool thing is that it also allows you to analyze sunlight in your spaces at various times of the day. So
can we look at the bottom one? Yeah, is that actually not built, right? That's not built yet.
That's correct. That is not an actual built one. So
can you go in and look at it?
Yes, I'm going to show you. Well, you can't do like a Matterport, but I'm going to show you actually a little 2-minute video that walks through this process here.
That uses all 3. So their video uses
all 3.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Exactly. All right. So let me start this here. All right. I'm assuming you guys can see this, but you probably couldn't hear anything. Is that correct? So you're not
right.
You're not hearing the hammer pound thing. Okay. So what I'm going to do is they've added some subtitles here, but I'm going to just stop this video along the way to kind of explain what's going on. So the first thing that they're going to show you is Chief Architect. And so here is the Chief Architect software. And the cool thing about it is as they draw, you can see how the program is creating these 3D models. So they're not creating them in 3D, they're actually drawing them in 2D plans. But as they draw the 2D plans, these 3D models are created. And so they can share these not only with the homeowners, but with structural engineers and with the other people that are going to be involved in the project. Okay, so there they progress here to Matterport. They should have put this first, but what they're doing here is they're walking through an existing space and they're filming it along the way. But as they're filming it, they allow it also to be able to take measurements. So what you're going to see here in a few minutes is them actually starting to take measurements. So they're in the laundry room here, and now they've just taken the height of this door. So they've now measured this door, and they're able to see the height of the door by going through the Matterport. So what this allows them to do is to have their trade partners without having to go back through the house. If you do a good job with a Matterport filming, you can literally have to go into that house once. If you capture every room and accurately place your camera in the right places. Yeah.
Is this as built for doing a remodel, or is this a new structure?
Correct. Right. So they're doing a remodel of this laundry room, and they're taking measurements. So here they've taken a measurement of the door. You can see the door is 8'0" from the floor, finished floor to the ceiling. Here they're taking the dimension here for the depth of the counter, which is looks like 2'3". So it's accurate to within about 90%. So you can get pretty darn accurate with these measurements. They're going to come over here. They're going to measure the depth of that soffit there. So that's a 1.2 soffit. Then once they have all these measurements from Matterport, then they go back in here to Chief Architect, and now they're using those dimensions that they had to actually start to create the specifications for the cabinets and the interior door specifications based on the measurements from Matterport. So here they are now. You can see them. They're drawing in the laundry room. They've created the dimensions and the size all based on the Matterport software.
And by the way, there's something else that does this. You can hook on an iPad for about $400 that you can walk through and get all the measurements the same way. You know the name of that software, Ed?
Yeah, I do. I'll have to think of it. Okay. So this is the third. This is the third software that they're using, and it's called Twin Motion. And I'm sure, and Marcos probably could tell us, because I think Marcos does some of this. There might be some other technologies out there, but this is the one that they use. And so what they've done is they've taken that 3D model that Chief Architect has done, and now it's added all of this. It's added, this looks like it's either at sunrise or sunset, so you can actually see how the light will fall on the house. You can see the trees blowing in the wind. And it really gets the client to be able to feel like this is what our house is going to look like when it's built.
So this is after the remodel, right? So they take the as-built and then they do the remodel.
This is before. Yeah, this is before the remodel.
No, but
right? So
this is before the remodel. They took the as-built, and then this is what it will look like after they do the remodel. It's not, it doesn't exist yet, right? So they can see the remodel before it happens, right?
Exactly right. Exactly. So you can see how the sunlight is reflecting on the walls there. They've obviously added all the furniture. They've added the outside. The wind is, the trees are swaying in the wind outside. You can see the water in the pool is moving. So it's just an amazingly realistic and captivating process that they use. So, and that's a little demo video that they sent out yesterday to their clients, and showing how they can utilize all three of those technologies.
Hey, can you ask the group a question? How many people are using either 360 cameras or Matterport? I'm just curious of this group. Is it something that's a technology they're using or not? Because I think it's going to be mandatory if you want to succeed at a higher level pretty soon. At least I think it's a great competitive edge. And Matterport's about $3,600, so it's well worth it. So the group here, now there's Peter. I haven't seen Peter in a long time. Hi, Peter. He's the Framer guy. I haven't talked to him. Hi, Peter. So is anybody using Matterport or 360 cameras? Can you raise your hand or say how you're working with it, looking at the group?
And let's add Chief Architect to that, because you can begin to see how these things can work together.
Other group, anybody using those tools?
Miriam raised her hand.
See. All right, let's get Miriam on and hear what Miriam has to say. All right, Miriam, you're on.
We use Chief Architect.
You do.
So that's what we use. And then we have another software that we use called Builder Trends, so that we can communicate with the client while they're up or down. So
exactly.
Those are the two tools that we use.
I see. And then, Miriam, within Chief Architect, are you using it to do the 3D models as well as the 2D plans and specs?
Yes. We set it all up and do a whole complete PowerPoint presentation showing what the project's going to look like before and what it's going to look like after, and sometimes we can even put some of their selections in there as well.
Right.
So, Miriam, question: what is your percentage of closing ratio once you get to the Chief Architect part? You use that as part of your sales presentation or after they bought?
Well, we have a two-step contract process, and we do a complimentary visit in their home to do our initial measuring and continue to build rapport and get more ideas of why they're motivated to remodel. We bring them into the office then for the showroom for a second meeting for a retainer. And our retainers, we charge $3,000 per room. And it's called a project retainer, not a design retainer. And we've given them, prior to that retainer, a complete PowerPoint show of their project and suggested selections, and also a preliminary budget range for the project. And if they feel comfortable with what we've put together, we can usually go to retainer at that point. Once we go to a retainer, then it's given we're going to go to a contract.
So what's your closing ratio for the PowerPoint?
The PowerPoint is probably, well, our closing ratio is 100% once they go to a retainer. But the PowerPoint,
right.
we don't do a PowerPoint unless we know they're qualified. So
what is your closing ratio, you know, from the PowerPoint to the retainer? 50%, 20%?
It's probably 80% once we go to a PowerPoint.
Cool.
Because we do an awful lot of pre-qualifying, building rapport, finding out who the decision makers are, that kind of thing, before we ever go to a lot of trouble to put together a PowerPoint and design.
You bet.
Okay, cool. Peter has a question. Can you find out what his question is?
He was just complimenting.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, David.
Peter was just saying hello. He was responding to your greeting.
Okay, great. He's in Berkeley. I'm glad he's still doing well.
So
I wonder if so Peter's in Berkeley. Peter, I'm curious if Berkeley is shut down. Are they one of the Bay Area counties that are shut down? I'm assuming that the construction is down as well. So Ned's got a couple questions, right? So he's saying that he's bought a 3D camera, but he hasn't bought a Matterport. He's wondering what the cost is for these. Well, the Matterport, Paul, you have a good idea of the Matterport.
Yeah.
Cost, but what's that?
Well, there's two versions of the Matterport. There's the $3,500 one, which gets you down to like 90% and can use pretty much everybody who's a contractor. If you're an engineer, there's one that's $18,000 that gets you down to like a 1/16 of an inch or something, but that's not really necessary. So I would say $3,500 for the camera, and then it's $65 a month for up to 25 projects, which should cover anybody. And I believe, you know, I've spent my whole life convincing contractors to spend money on technology, you know, with some success and some not. I mean, I had to talk them into. I remember cell phones were going to serve in the truck, and websites are a waste of time, and emails are bad. I've been in this for 35 years. I mean, I started with a phone in my trunk that looked about this big. It was a radio, and I went, "Hi, this is Paul." I talked to the radio person to make a phone call. So we've come a long way. But I would say, you know, Ed, can you go to your 3 deadly sins? It might be appropriate. What are the 3 things? You've done this for many, many years. There's only 3 things that really tank contractors. And this is after doing hundreds and hundreds of contractors over like 30 years. We've narrowed it down to the 3 things. We call them the 3 deadly sins of contractors. And Ed, you're going to do a talk on that idea.
So the first deadly sin is, this is kind of the seeds for possibly my IBS presentation next year, if they even have IBS. So that's your brain around that.
Details.
Yeah. So the first one is not marketing all the time. You know, that's where contractors really see themselves as construction businesses. But just like Nike is a marketing business that sells shoes, we tell our clients that you are a marketing company that sells construction projects, and you have to be marketing all the time.
Yeah, you fund your marketing with a product or service, and whether it's Nike or pretty much any successful company in this country, in the Western countries, are a marketing company that funds that marketing with some kind of product or service. So if you look at a marketing Nike sports shoe, you know, it may cost you $150. Well, they spend $12 to make it in China. They spend, you know, maybe $20 to $30 on marketing it, and some of it in distribution. But the big cost is the marketing. Well, if you look at most contractors, you look at their marketing budget, they go, what marketing budget? I personally believe that a marketing budget should be 2 to 3% of your total sales. But some contractors just don't go there. But I think this pandemic is a perfect example. if you're in the desert and you run out of water, it's not the desert's fault, right? So I believe that not doing well during this pandemic and afterwards is your own fault. Because if you are marketing effectively and you've got the technology, now's the time for technology to leap ahead of the competition. And I've used technology as a competitive edge for years. So I would take a small contractor who's doing $1 million, going up against the big guns that are doing 10 or 15 million in a market, and I would use technology as a competitive edge. I would use, Builder Trend or Co-Construct. I would use Matterport, whatever it took to give us the edge when working with architects over the good old boys who've been there forever. As I said, when you're marketing architects, they've already got a girlfriend that's not you. So you got to convince them to use you. And we found technology is the best thing to do. So if you, and that's ties in the next point, but marketing is key. You should spend, what is a normal contractor? Let's answer the phone and do a good job. I think that will kill you in this pandemic. I think you're going to have to shift. You're going to have to actually spend some money on marketing, and that'll make all the difference coming out of this thing. Okay, Ed, what's your next thing?
Yeah, well, let me build on that. I was listening to a podcast this weekend with a guy that wrote a book called Rock the Recession. He actually wrote it after the recession 10 years ago. And, he said there are certain things you absolutely want to cut back on during a recession to reduce your costs. But the one thing you don't want to cut back on is marketing. He said that marketing is actually more effective and more important during a recession than it is during a regular time. So I
think we're a living example of that, right? I mean, we have people at this webinar. We could never get a webinar to work. So we spent a bunch of time and energy making these webinars. And on our Friday webinar, we get like 300 people to sign up. So as a company, consulting company, we have dumped a lot more time and energy into marketing since this pandemic, and it's worked great. Because now we have contractors actually have the time to listen to what we have to say. So it's a great time to market. Up your marketing budget.
All right. So the second thing that gets contractors in trouble is that they're not recruiting all the time. And now this is kind of the opposite question here, right? So people kind of think, well, I only need to recruit in good times, but it's actually the reverse. It is just as important to be recruiting in times like now. Again, this guy that wrote the book Rock the Recession said that he talked to several people in the last year, and the ones that knew what they were talking about said, the recession can't get here soon enough. We can't find any good help. The labor markets are so overloaded right now that we can't find any good help. So we're actually welcoming a recession because we know that that's going to be our opportunity to attract star players, either from other companies that aren't going to make it through this or from other industries. As I think I mentioned before, I was listening to another webinar a couple of weeks ago, and with a labor specialist, and they were saying how they're seeing this migration from impacted industries like hospitality and travel and transportation into what's considered safe or developing industries, and residential home construction is one of those, right? We're not eliminating the need for homes. If anything, we're increased in our need for homes here during the pandemic. So bright and talented people that see a dead end because they're in the hospitality industry or travel industry are now looking for new industries to go into. And so we're going to have this flood of bright new talent coming into the residential construction industry.
Right. And I can second that because, we run a recruiting company, recruit for like 25 different contractors. And it's never been better since we've been in business. It's amazing. There's always the employees that are not bad enough to fire, good enough to keep. During this recession, you can get rid of them. Now, some people go, but I just got my PPP and I have to retain them. That is not true. You have to have somebody there. We have a couple companies where they're getting rid of the people that they should have gotten rid of a while ago, and they're using the PPP to hire somebody new and better than the one they got rid of. Because the PPP just says you have to spend it on payroll. It doesn't say who you have to spend it on. So you can use the PPP as an awesome time to get rid of that dead weight, recruit some really good people into your company, and you got the money to pay for them. So now's the time to recruit.
And then the third deadly sin is what Paul said, which is the not adopting technology. So, and I think those three sins of not marketing, not always hiring, and not adopting technology become even more magnified in challenging times like what we have right now. David, it looks like Peter had a response here about working Berkeley. What did Peter say?
Yeah, so he's basically saying, yes, Berkeley is in fact shut down. And so they were trying to continue to work on a new residence using safety, as the concern. But apparently he said neighbors complained. So the city stepped in and said, you just have to shut things down.
Yep. I think that brings out an important point. If you're going to work, clear it with the neighbors, because everybody that we've seen get shut down, the city never showed up until the neighbor complained. So if you're going to plan on working during this time, go make friends with the neighbors. Buy them a pizza, whatever it takes. Make friends with all the neighbors, because if the neighbors don't complain, you're probably good. But if the neighbors do complain, the city feels obligated to shut you down. So if you decide to work in spite of what's going on, make sure you make friends with all the neighbors, because they're probably your biggest problem. They all like you, you're good. We've worked with a lot of contractors, and when the neighbors have been supportive, there's been no problems. When the neighbors are upset, you get shut down.
Well, and this kind of segues back into your first deadly sin, Ed, that marketing. And I've always told contractors, when you're doing projects that may go 2-3 months or longer, a simple little pardon my dust mailing, which is, sending her out to the surrounding, block. We're going to be in your neighborhood working. If there's any disturbance, let us know. And so informing that you're trying to work with them in a collaborative fashion and sending out another one in the middle of the job. Basically trying to piggyback what you're saying, Paul, which is we want to work with you. If there's any inconvenience, let us know. And if in fact they were shut down, and then going back to those neighbors, and you said, could you go door to door and just saying, we're trying to close things in. We just want you to know what we're doing. Look, that's just effective.
Right. And you can show up to the neighbor, with a bottle of hand sanitizer wearing a mask, right? and say, we want to help this person get into their house, and we care about you. We're taking all these precautions. We're doing everything we can. Is it okay with you if we won't park in front, whatever? We're using all these precautions to make sure that everybody's safe. But this poor guy is, living in a hotel or wherever, and he wants to get back into his house. So is it okay with you if we work? And these are all the precautions we're taking. You got to tell the neighbors on why it's safe for them too.
Yeah, good point.
All right, I'm going to bring up the next subject here, which is something that I heard on a podcast this weekend. Also heard a couple of other coaches talk about this as well, is that basically what we have been experiencing here for the last 5 weeks is a loss, right? A loss of business revenue, a loss in our personal and social environment, a loss in our lifestyle. We've had lots and lots of losses. And we as individuals, as companies, and as a nation have been dealing with these losses in various ways. Now, there are 5 stages to loss that were first studied with people that are diagnosed with terminal diseases or suffer the loss of a loved one. This was done, 30, 40 years ago, I think, by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and David Kessler. Anyway, they've identified these 5 stages, and pretty much anyone that experiences a loss goes through these 5 stages, and usually in this order. So the first thing that happens is denial, right? And I can still remember that first week when I had the first sporting event get canceled. I was in denial. I remember when David heard that JLC Live was going to be canceled. I think, David, your reaction was, that's crazy. They can't do that, right? This is ridiculous. This has gone too far. So that's kind of the first reaction that we all have. The next thing, which I'm still in sometimes, is anger, right?
Me too.
I am so pissed off sometimes. I feel like, they're like, saving, and I'm going to get on my political soapbox a little bit, but I mean, I'm not being callous here, but I think that we have to kind of look at the cost of saving lives and realizing that, we can't bankrupt our entire nation to save lives at all costs. I don't think you can say, we're going to save lives at all costs. It's just, it doesn't work. So anyway, but that's my anger. So the next one is bargaining, right? So now we're starting to think, well, if we could just get some of the things open, if we could just continue to do some construction and whatever. And then I think also we've all gone through a lot of this, the next stage, which is depression, right? Oh my God, I didn't realize how long this was going to take. I didn't know, I'm sure Miriam's going through that as well. I mean, her income for the year, revenue projections have been cut in half. And so there's lots of reason and cause for depression. But it's the fifth stage that we have to get to in order for us to move forward. And that's the stage of acceptance. We finally have to get to the point and say, you know what, guys, this is not going away. We've got to find a way to deal with it. We have to find a way to move on beyond this. We can't change what's happened, and we need to move on. So I think as you go through and you look at whether it's your personal life and what you're resisting here from this transition, or in your business, you have to get to the point of acceptance. And so take a look, ask yourself what stage you're in.
Right. And I think it's critical. I mean, we've all had friends who got a divorce, and it's 15 years later and they're still in the middle of the divorce, right? They never got over it and moved on. So that happens. And the key to this is don't get stuck, because it's expensive. If you get, I don't think anybody's in denial anymore, not much of us, but a lot of us are angry. And certainly we're going to try to say what's going on. Some people are depressed. But until you get through acceptance, I think the thing after acceptance that's not on here is action. Okay, I get it. I don't agree with it. This is a pain in the butt. I don't want to do it anymore. What am I going to do about it? Because every time there's a shift or reset in the economy, there's a lot of opportunity. But you're never going to see that opportunity unless you accept that, okay, this is the way it is. I'm in the desert. I'm out of water. What am I going to do? Bad mistake, but I got to fix it. Now, along with those things, we have a couple of suggestions. One is, if you have a credit line, and this has to do with acceptance, take it out, borrow the money, because banks never loan money to people that need it. That's like the fundamental rule of banking. And I have had a client who, during the last recession, was doing 15, 20 million. That is a third generation business that perfect credit, perfect everything, that a $2 million in line with Bank of America. And they'd never done anything wrong. All of a sudden they get this notice, we've just canceled your $2 million line. And they went, what? Somebody at Bank of America, during the last recession, decided that contractors weren't a worthy, person that they should loan money to. So made a blanket decision, and they cut all the contractors' credit lines. And so they went from having a $2 million credit line to zero through no fault of their own. So this could happen. I mean, banks could say, you know what, we decided construction's not that safe. So the bank policy with Chase or whatever bank, pick one, says we're just not going to have credit lines with contractors anymore, and they'll cancel your credit line, having nothing to do with you at all. So that could happen. Now, there's a way to prevent that, isn't there, Ed?
Right. So the key thing here is that you want to not only draw down on your line of credit, but it's important that you transfer that money, transfer those funds to an account in another bank. Because oftentimes what the line of credit arrangements that banks have made is that not only can they pull that line of credit whenever they want, but they can oftentimes draw that money out of your checking account. So even if you've drawn down on your line of credit and you have it sitting in your checking account or your savings account with that same bank, they can still access that money. So again, it goes back to those stages. Don't be in the stage of denial or anger, but realize that this is not going to go away for a while. And you want to be as everything that you can right now to preserve your cash. And if you have a line of credit, possibly even if you have a home equity line of credit, I think it's worth drawing down on it just so you have that cushion, so that if and when you need it, you've got those funds available. So none of us have a crystal ball on how quickly we're going to get out of this. I do think that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but drawing down on your line of credit is an important thing.
We've had a comment in regards to things opening up, because I think we're all seeing, as you just said, some light at the end of the tunnel. And Elena just made a comment that she's had 3 consultations in the past week, and the first interest that they've had from homeowners in the last 30 days. So still working on the selling portion, but people are beginning to reach out again. Elena, can we just unmute you and kind of talk about your experience? I'm going to do that now.
Let's hear some good news.
Elena, you're on.
I know she's listening.
Well, I can hear if there isn't a mic on her computer.
Could be.
Okay.
Okay.
Could be.
So Ed, continue.
All right. Yeah, so let me go back and also talk some more about the importance of preserving your cash. So another thing that you want to do is focus on your quick ratio. So for those of you that don't know what your quick ratio is, that's it's a thing that financial accountants use to be able to evaluate the health of a business. And it basically is the ratio between your current assets, current liquid assets, which means cash in the bank, immediate receivables, any kinds of savings that you have, all of that over whatever your short-term payables are. All right, those are bills that you have to pay in the next 30 days. You want to have a positive quick ratio, right? Which means that you have more available cash, short-term available cash than you do short-term payables. So how you can help to increase that quick ratio is collect receivables as quickly as you can. If you have any clients that you sent bills to maybe at the beginning of the pandemic and you haven't heard from them since, and you feel like, oh, geez, I really don't want to ask them for the money, make that phone call. Ask them for it. Negotiate with them. Say, look, I sent the bill for $100,000. Why don't you pay? I've got to pay my employees. I got to keep things moving. How about you pay half of it right now, and we can pay the other half when you get going again.
And there's another thing you can do, and that is you can extend credit. I mean, if anybody's going to allow you more credit or to skip your mortgage, there's a bunch of stuff that's never been out there before. I know Ed we had a talk, he got to skip his mortgage on his shopping center thing. But do that now, because if anybody's going to be open to those kinds, like I don't want to pay my mortgage, can I negotiate new things, can I do whatever, you've got a window here of maybe about 30 days if you're lucky to renegotiate those loans to get time. Once it goes back to the new normal, whatever that is, that door is going to close. And you can't go to your mortgage company, you can't go to your vendors, you can't go to anybody else and say, look, give me a break, I need some time here. They're going to go, hey, it's back to normal, pay your bill. So now is the time to go negotiate those terms. Now, not 3 weeks from now.
Exactly.
And then you did that, right?
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yep. I have a shopping center here in San Diego, and I knew that all of my tenants, they're all retail tenants, and there was just no way that they were going to be able to pay the rent. And so I went to my lender, my mortgage, and I said, look, I'm not asking for any, free mortgage relief here, but why don't we just take the next 3 months of my mortgage payments and push them out to the end of my mortgage term? And they agreed to that. So that's also another great way that you can look at if you're a tenant with a lease. And so now what I'm doing is I'm going to all my tenants and I'm doing the same thing. So I'm saying, okay, look, guys, you don't have to pay rent here for April, May, and June. But what I'm doing is I'm taking those 3 months of rent and I'm going to put them at the end of your lease. So if your lease was going to expire, say, at the end of this year, now it's going to expire at the end of March. So I basically just kind of was able to push out those 3 months of mortgage payments and push out the 3 months of rent. And so that's a great way for those of you that are tenants to negotiate with your landlord. Say, look, I don't want to get free rent. I just want to take these next 2 or 3 months of rent and let's just extend out my lease term, and I'll extend that out at the end.
But now that's the time. Now is the time to do this because everybody's still in like, well, let's figure it out. Maybe we should do something. Once this goes back to the new normal, all those opportunities are gone. Your suppliers, that kind of stuff. In fact, one thing, by the way, your suppliers, there's going to be supply chain problems. You already have some of our clients that have them. So get the stuff, whatever the stuff is, and store it or whatever, because you already have clients running to have them going cabinets, drywall, whatever, and you can't build without stuff. So do that now too. We get first in line.
Right, exactly. And to just go back to your point, Paul, too, I went and asked my lender for 3 months. I'm not thinking it's going to be 3 months before we're back to work, but I knew that now was the time to ask them. It was perfect timing because this thing is already drawn on so long. Everyone's kind of the point where they just don't know what's going to go on. So I knew now was the best time to ask for that 3-month extension. And I also am realistic enough to know that even when my tenants can open their shops again, it's going to take them weeks before they can get their sales back to where it was. So now is definitely the right time to negotiate. So, all right. So we are just about out of time here. We want to remind you that we are going to continue to do our free weekly webinars on Fridays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Now a different format than what you saw here today. It's going to be different information than what we covered. We're going to be talking more about a little bit about what we touched on last week on this call, but more about what we're seeing here going forward and what are going to be the trends and best practices in a post-pandemic residential construction industry. So I'm just going to put our contact information up here again. If any of you have any questions at all, anything that comes up during the week, don't hesitate to either pick up the phone or send us an email. David, Paul, and I are available at all times. Many of you have reached out, and we've been really happy to be able to help in any way we can. So with that, thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Bye.
Everybody take care.
Yep. Be safe.